On today's show, we talk the environment and social justice with an incredible Greenpeace environmental activist. Hello, and welcome you watching The Ledge. I'm your host, Lola Acala. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of our show. Let's get right to it, guys. September 2nd, 2015 saw my guest and British actress Emma Thompson, along with 64 other activists and puppeteers, descend on Shell's South Bank headquarters in London, England, with a colossal 3-ton polar bear called Aurora to protest Shell's Arctic drilling for oil in the Alaskan region, which experts have said, in the event of an oil spill, has the potential to do irreversible damage to one of the world's last pristine environments and its ecosystem. And joining me now in the studio, she's an absolute warrior woman, a member of the Musqueam First Nations people. Please welcome to the show, Greenpeace environmental activist, Audrey Siegl. Hello, my dear.
Hello, how are you?
How are you, darling?
I'm great.
Good to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Indeed. So you have been one busy girl. I mean, that was quite the mission. London, England, Shell headquarters, a bunch of warrior women, yourself, Emma Thompson, and my favorite part, Aurora the polar bear, present, towering over the entire South Bank. I mean, that was an incredible statement. How did all of that come about, the whole idea, and how did you and Emma Thompson all, get to be a part of that?
It started in May. There was some spiritual work being done on the Esperanza in the dry dock over in North Van, and that's where I met Jess Wilson. I love Jess, and she asked if I was interested in being a part of the Stop Shell Save the Arctic campaign.
Indeed.
And how could you say anything but yes?
Absolutely.
So the first portion of the work was done with a 2-leg trip on the Esperanza up to Haida Gwaii with 6 First Nations delegates.
Incredible.
And the second leg of that same trip was the Esperanza. We were literally floating around just outside Campbell River, waiting for the drilling rig, the Polar Pioneer, to leave Portland. And then the next big portion of that was going to London to the Shell headquarters with Aurora, with the amazing classical musicians who'd been set up for a month straight out front. We got there to the prep site at sunrise in order to make it down the street and to have Aurora ready to be posted up at sunrise,
right there,
to make our statement that Aurora is not leaving until the Arctic is safe.
And there was good news 26 days later, please.
26 days later, we got the news that Shell was pulling out, and quite frankly, I don't care why they pulled out.
Indeed.
If it was because some of it was attributable to the work with Greenpeace and the international effort that was made.
Indeed.
Because of the immensely successful campaign, part of the new tools that we have in these ongoing battles to protect what is sacred, to protect all life, is social media.
Indeed.
And learning to use social media, learning to use these networks that are created.
Incredible, powerful force.
It is,
Yes.
and it's part of the reason why we have been able to have success on many fronts as Indigenous people around the world.
Well, there was no doubt that 26 days later, Shell did announce that it was ceasing all exploration due to what they call a disappointing exploration outcome. Now, whether or not it was that, or we are happy to know that one of the last pristine environments on Earth has been saved. Now, I gotta ask you, you are often seen, charging the sea, with a drum in your hand on one of those Greenpeace boats, just going straight heading off to one of those rigs. What is often going through your mind, when you're in the middle of that, about to embark on one of those journeys?
In the time that we were waiting for the rig to approach, we were all on pins and needles because we had a set amount of time to be in the water before we turned around. So the general consensus was that the Polar Pioneer, Shell, were waiting for us to move before they moved. And the last 24 hours, we got word the rig is moving. It's going to be, and it was so huge, over 300 feet tall, that you could see it all way off on the horizon, even without binoculars. And as it approached, I could feel a calm.
Wow.
I could feel a strength that, like, it comes up from the earth, it comes up from the water, it comes from the people around you, and there was a solidity in it, and it was a clearness that we knew this was going to be our only chance to make any kind of statement, and most likely we're not going to stop it. It would have been nice to have stopped it, and that was my intention when saying yes to go out on the water, and because to get into the little rib that we went out to the drilling rig in, it's also exciting. It's all just big adventures on the ship.
You know, your heart pumping, knowing what you're about to embark on.
You have to climb out the side of a door on the side of the ship on a little rope ladder, and then I think I'm a little bit crazy where these things happen. That it excites me. I love it.
Exactly. No.
And
absolutely.
Then just sitting there knowing that we're heading out to it and feeling the water and knowing that there are ancestors going back to the first sunrise with us, that our purpose is the same purpose of those ancestors, to protect, to preserve, to promote, not only what is sacred to us.
Down my, just right down my spine now, because I understand that, what it means, to keep standing up. That's what I do every day, to keep standing up for the injustices that we know is here, even in our society, in our Canadian society,
Especially in our Canadian society.
Oh my God, I know.
Our existence is nothing but an inconvenience to the system that works so hard around the world to eradicate us.
I know it. It's on myself as well. You know, I'm fighting it every day as a person, as an ethnic woman, you know, and it's every day that I fight it. So I understand what that feels like, and I know, when you go out and do these things, it's an amazing feeling. Now, not everyone's excited about the idea of, saving our environment, and these are the very people who, see the work that you do, and they, call it a bit of a nuisance. In fact, Shell spoke to the independent newspaper, and they say that the company respects the rights of people who want to protest as they try to meet the world's energy demands. But for them, it is disappointing that Greenpeace continually chooses to focus on mounting publicity stunts rather than engage in constructive debates. So my question is, when you hear something like that, what is your response to that, and especially to all of those who see the work that you do in this way, basically?
I must always look at these criticisms, these alternate perspectives, and see what's to be gained from it. What information does this give me to be a more powerful tool for positive change, and not just for me and not just for women, but for every person and every life on this planet. So when Shell comes out and says these mounting media stunts and that they respect the rights of protesters, first of all, I'm not a protester. I am a protector. I protest nothing. I stand for what is right and what is just and what is sacred. What they're doing is destructive. At the sheer face of it, they are coming from a diametrically opposite position to where I'm coming from. I come from light, love, peace, justice. They're coming for only the dollar sign. And they're using the fact, profit at all costs. And how did Shell gain their power? The same way that these colonial governments around the world have gained their power. And how do they enforce this power? They have money to hire private military, our police departments and our CMP are now privatized.
And all these other places,
Now it's happening here.
Absolutely.
It's growing here. We have paramilitary forces instead of police departments and our CMP. So to them, I say, to Shell on this topic, I say, they use the media the same way that Greenpeace does. And we are in a battle. And what we have going for us is going to be their undoing, that we are standing connected and uniting, and we are promoting love and unity, and we are promoting, again, I come back to the same point of what is sacred, because that's what I do my work for. And we are working for constructive purposes, and they are working for destructive.
For the earth, indeed. Now, I want to talk a little bit about you. You're from the Musqueam First Nations people. Tell me about your parents and the work that they did. This is where
it makes me proud to say, my name is Chemtanat. I am from Musqueam. I am the granddaughter of Stephen and Selena August. And for people who knew my grandparents, that places me in a time, in a space, in a role. And I've never been so proud to speak any language than I am to speak the Huntkaminam language of my Musqueam people. My grandparents were both residential school survivors, and he carved, she knit, they worked the land. They did their best to raise their family in unimaginable conditions.
Circumstances,
all of the babies, all the kids were taken from residential school, and
it was a terrible time for the people.
And it really hasn't changed that much.
No.
We have it better in a lot of ways, and I'm grateful for that forward progress that we have pushed. That we consistently are left with our hands out for crumbs off the cookie, which is our land. My grandparents were proud and beautiful. They were fierce. My granny would knit a sweater in a day and a half to make sure that they had money for food, that they had money for gas, that they had money for bills. And
most people cannot survive in those conditions.
No.
Do you know what I mean? When you think about it, what those people had to endure and had to come through.
It really was only survival. We have an opportunity to thrive, and we don't have equality and justice for ourselves yet, but we have more than they did. For even my mom, my dad is born in the UK. His mom's family is British, French, and Jewish ancestry. His father is Bavarian, Austrian, German, UK, and East Indian. So they moved here to Canada when my dad was 6, and he's had this whole crazy adventure of a life since then. And he raised my sister and I with my mom's family since I was 2. So he was a single dad in East Van in the 70s with 2 little brown girls. So he put everything he had into us, and now I know what it's like to be loved. I know what it's like to be grateful for that foundation.
It's a beautiful thing.
And it worries them. It worries my parents sometimes what I do because of the danger of it.
Oh, it is a danger because, you become, there's a book, that talks about bearing the cross. Because when you bear that cross, fighting for other people, you then, you are the target. And that's essentially what happens to those who speak up and stand up. But, the fight, I always say, that which protects us is so much more greater than that which wants to attack us. You made a comment once about the fact that you refuse to get up willingly and knowingly put on the guilt suit of being an Indian. I mean, that's a powerful statement.
I would not. I sat up in bed, and I remember that morning. I remember that feeling. I sat up, and it was like my eyes were clear. It was like something was like lined up head to toe, and I thought, that's not mine. I'm not putting that on.
Absolutely.
But the dangerous thing is I didn't have anything ready to put in place of it.
Indeed.
So that was the beginning of what is now become a 15-year
deconstruction in a sense. Absolutely.
Yes, that's exactly it.
What the society's telling you about yourself, that it's all a lie.
I didn't know it wasn't a lie until that moment.
Indeed.
I believed it, and then it was almost like an instantaneous recognition of the fallacies, of the spoon-fed lies from birth and from society, enforced externally. That then, once I recognized my own truth, separate from the truths that the truths that I was told were mine, and then I recognized that's not mine. Then instantaneously I knew I had to do something, so I signed up for the language course. And to this point, before then, because of the shame, because of the disconnection, and I was raised in a very traditional way, in a lot of respects. I got the benefit of learning some of the medicines of taking care of my grandmother, of going with her while she did her work, and sitting with that generation and the generation past that, and hearing the language and listening to them speak and connect in ways that we don't have the benefit of anymore. So even though I had that benefit, I was still separate. You still
had to go into it.
How I did that was through the language. I was one of these people who was irritated by people marching in the streets and blocking intersections. I thought, surely there's a better way. This is how disconnected I was. I've come full circle on that. That now I would have never imagined that this is my life, the peace and the healing that I found for myself, that I've been able to create. I would have never imagined I deserve it.
You also protest downtown at the Oppenheimer Park. You do a little bit of work at the Burnaby Mountain. There's also the copper mines around Canada. Briefly explain what the work is that you do in each and every one of these sites and what it is that you're hoping to achieve.
What's become clear is part of my work is connecting the dots, being in places physically, and people will say, why is she here? Why is she there?
Yes.
Why is she there? Because people often have a hard time to connect why different topics are related. At the time of Oppenheimer Park, I was on the copper journey across Canada to Ottawa. The Awalaskanis too, with Idle No More, an extension of Idle No More.
Indeed.
Oppenheimer Park happened. Burnaby Mountain was popping up. I had decided to say yes to run for city council, and there was an immense amount of emotional upheaval in my life in those short few months. So at Oppenheimer Park, I put up my longhouse, and the people who were going to be evicted, the homeless people who were living in tents in Oppenheimer, because it is a safer place than any of the other options provided by the city. Is connected to Burnaby Mountain, is connected to the sacred headwaters, is connected to imperial metals, it's connected to Mount Polley, it's connected to Lilu, it's connected to Voice for the Voiceless, it's connected to Site C, it's connected to the 43
people who have
it's
been
connected to areas
annihilated
south of the border, the 43 missing Ayotzinapa students. It's connected to the mining industries that over 75% of the world's mining companies find a safe haven here in Vancouver to conduct their dirty deeds that are killing people in other places. And the connection is that it is a violation and a trampling of not just Indigenous rights, but human rights. And the rights of this earth to continue to support us the way that it has for how long?
They have the money to lobby the governments to continue to move forward these agendas. Now, I want to talk about some other issues concerning our Indigenous and Aboriginal communities, our brothers and sisters out there, basically. Particularly, I want to talk about the missing and murdered, Indigenous Aboriginal women. Now, a lot of the people that I spoke to, they say that Canada does not have the will to provide fundamental justice for its Indigenous and Aboriginal people, due to the fact also because they see that, since Picton, no one has been, apprehended, no one has been, brought to justice for these crimes. And so because of that, they mistrust the process. And they see it as, just another, particularly, especially, with this national inquiry. Now, before I mention the national inquiry, just recently with the appointment of Jody Wilson-Raybould, who is an Aboriginal Justice Minister. Now, first of all, what was your reaction when you heard that, there is an Aboriginal minister? What was your reaction to that?
Torn. I'm torn. I love Jody. I love and support so much of the work that she's done, and I know that as an Indigenous woman, she has had to do incomparably more work to gain the access to the position where she's now in, to be able to do the good work that she's now going to be able to do.
It has a lot to do with the work that her father did also. In light of that, the Liberals have said that they are setting up a national inquiry to look into this case. Now, do you think that gives, the community a bit of hope, a sense of hope in terms of the fact that we have an, Aboriginal person at the helm of what's going on, and it might be handled differently, would you say?
I want to be hopeful. I just came back, Prince George, there was a symposium, Murdered Missing Women symposium, and the dangerous thing is the hope, because so far it's still words. And underneath everything, we must never forget the fact that this same government that is now promising to find solutions and look into what's happened and to end murdered and missing women, to in fact put safety measures in place so that we stop going missing, so that we stop being murdered and abused and violated and sold at such high numbers comparatively to other women in Canada. This same government is responsible for this happening. At its inception, it was created to eradicate us off this land to gain full access to the resources. They still want full access to the resources and are using still the most despicable methods possible. So they're talking out of their one side of their mouth saying they're going to help us, and they're talking out of the other side of their mouth supporting the industries that are directly related to why this continues, along with other reasons.
The reason, because for me, I always believe in the idea that, you know, I give people enough benefit of a doubt until they show me otherwise, you know, and there's a part of me that really wants to believe that this new Prime Minister is actually going to do what he says he's going to do in terms of right some of these wrongs. So my question is, if not a national inquiry, what then do you think that the community will look to as a measure of, you know, that's needed in terms of, you know, something that they would embrace in the community?
I think Trudeau still has to prove himself to me and a lot of people.
Very
the
much
hope
so.
that is being created, that I'm terrified is going to do more damage to people who finally are allowing themselves to be hopeful. We're in the proving ground. So the inquiry, just like TRC, will help and provide healing for some people. And I am grateful for that healing for anybody and for that peace to be found. But as I said to Jody Wilson and the two ministers that were here during the pre-inquiry work that was done almost a month ago, the same thing I said to the ministers that I had a private audience with up in Prince George this weekend. For us to have actual belief that they're going to keep going in a good direction with sincere efforts to back up the words and the promises they've made, there is no option. We need actions right now. We need actions right now to create safety now. They have the access to the resources, they have the access to the time, and they have the access to all of the tools available to put in the shuttle on the highway of tears, to provide safe transportation across this country, because the lack of safe transportation is one of the huge reasons why our women are out there in dangerous situations.
And that's the thing, because I was going to touch on that as well, in terms of the fact that, you know, there is a certain risk in terms of, you know, what the women are kind of forced to do, basically.
They are forced. We've been stripped of our rights. We've been stripped of our ability to live as we lived on what is still our land. This isn't the government of Canada's land. The government of Canada is based on a fictitious authority that is enforced by their for-hire military forces. And they still keep shifting things to put the responsibility back on us to solely be responsible for our own safety, when that's not how it works for the rest of society. Yes, we need education within our own communities, but underneath that, we need real resolutions to provide healing so that people are able to think clearly, people are able to work and function on a daily basis and be productive outside of a survival reality. Most of our women are just barely surviving. When you have to go to work, when you have to get here or there, and because your babies need food, because you need to make that money, and there is no other way. And as a society, we have been conditioned, especially the men. We live in a rape culture where men are not taught to not rape. Women are taught to prevent the rapes. And on top of that, we are the most devalued, dehumanized resource out there. So you put that together, and no matter how much education we have, no matter how much self-defense we have, no matter how much money is poured into it, it is still dangerous and unsafe. And that's the way the system continues to benefit from at our expense.
I was going to talk about the idea also, because when you look at the statistics in terms of, you know, the violence against women, it's not just exclusive to, you know, the Aboriginal community. This is a national, this is a worldwide, you know, issue for women everywhere, because and when you look at statistics, it shows that a lot of the women who are killed are actually killed by men that they know. You know, so when we put all of that together, it's not going to be just enough that we put, you know, because I've heard someone say maybe some of the National Inquiry money, we should put it towards, you know, programs to, you know, help women and children. But I think also it's not enough, that we have to also help the men in those communities as well, because, you know, we can do as much and help the women, but if we don't take care of the men who have to live and who have to, you know, be with them in the same communities, then it's just a waste of time, would you say?
It is definitely a waste of time. I look in my own community and I see the levels of violence, the levels of addiction, the levels of rape and pedophilia, incest within each family, and that it's not dealt with on the levels of our chief and council. It's not dealt with within our, we have an amazing
community that needs help, you know?
Screaming out for help. Every suicide in our communities, we have 10-year-olds killing themselves now. Why is that? And to keep throwing money at the problem, money isn't the only solution.
No.
We need, see, what this is finitely going to come to is a point where the government, if it's going to, and the ministers who represent the government, for them to show not just good faith, but that they want to move forward in a good way, nuts amidst we are one, as one, that they are going to have to concede a lot of their power and authority that they benefit from. And we need the matriarchs to be able to step back into our natural roles, because that's where the balance and the shift comes. And when that is allowed to happen, when we are allowed to have full access and control over our lands, our unceded sacred lands, we will do things in a way that take care of everybody, not just the people who are benefiting now from the suffering of the ones who don't have.
My hope is that with, this new Justice Minister, Jody Wilson-Raybould, that she will be able to understand what is necessary in terms of how we can move forward with healing, the kind of healing that the community will embrace, the kind of healing that, it will show that Canada actually has the will to see this through. Another thing, you ran for City Council not too long ago. Yes, you didn't win, but you really got that experience. Now, why do you think you didn't win? And also, are you going to run again?
The reason I ran for any government position is because of the level of frustration that I live with every day at the amount of control that this government, these systems that are enforced on us have over my life. My intention with running for City Council was to find the weaknesses in it, chip away at it, break it open, take out what doesn't work, and put in what does work, so that it actually is a representative democratic system. I don't believe we've ever had a system of true democracy here in Canada.
Absolutely. So it's called a quasi-democracy.
Well, my dad says it's very debatable. It's very similar to a banana republic.
Yes.
We have freedom and justice for some, and we have oppression and injustice for others. And how is that allowed to continue? I am willing to stand on every front. I am willing to do whatever job needs to be done. I don't want to do another Murdered Missing Women Valentine's Day March. How about we do a victory march, because not a single Aboriginal woman has gone missing or been murdered in a considerable amount of time.
We're going to get there. I think we will get there. We have no choice, but we have to keep fighting. I love the work that you do, and we're right behind you in support, and I know as many other people are right behind you. Audrey Siegl, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hichka, thank you for your amazing work too.
Thank you, darling. And that's our show. I'd like to thank my guest, Audrey Siegl. And you at home, thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, or you just want to tell us how we're doing, please go to our website, www.TheLedgeTVShow.com, or our Twitter page, or our Facebook page, or you can tweet me at Lola Acala. Until next time, guys, take care of one another, and we'll see you soon.
It all becomes clear. Before you know it, it's only a matter of time. But it's right before you. So don't give up. You truly know God has done who you are. It all becomes so clear. It's then that you truly know. And before you know it,